What's up, Stitt-Heads? I don't have two zigzags because I've already been using my pinch hitter, but I do have a Colt 45. So today we're going to have a fun one, man. Our world is basically lies. Everything is lies at this point. Not to be Mr. Blackpill, but you can't help it these days. But especially when it comes to our tax dollars, when it comes to foreign wars involvement, even if we're not involved in the war per se with boots on the ground, we're still sending money, we're still sending munitions. Think of the beginning of Iron Man, the first one, when he gets captured and he sees all those missiles with his company's name on the side of them. And that's us. I'm not trying to dog on the US, but Bradley Lail, he's a veteran. He's host of the podcast, The Awaken Pod. He's been on the show two times, yeah, two times before this. And it's kind of fun to talk to military guys and understand like when they were in what they signed up for, and then once they get out, most of them will tell you this story. This is not what I signed up for. So, anyways, welcome back to the pod, Bradley. How you doing, man?
What's up, man? It's good to be back. I'm glad to be talking Stitt with you again.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, that's what happened when you get out of the military, dude. It's like it's kind of funny, man, because you could see behind me, I have military challenge coins on the wall. If a little bit further to, if my camera's panned over a little bit, you'll see like my awards and my medals and decorations and all this other stuff. And I have a flag that was flown over the Pentagon, all this stuff that I had whenever I first got out. I was very patriotic and I still am patriotic, but it's different, man, because, now I look at it as like, man, we were being used and we were being brainwashed. And we've been brainwashed since the day we were born to be patriotic, you know what I mean? And you see it, they wouldn't still be advertising on football games. They wouldn't still be doing flyovers on football and baseball games and all this other stuff if it wasn't an agenda to try to get us in the mindset of patriotism. And they prey on people like me who come from the South, who grew up in a trailer park, and they expect us to strap on our boots and go get killed for their whatever their cause is. And you don't really pay attention to that until you get over there and you start going, what are we here for? This doesn't make any sense. And over and over you see people dying and all this stuff, and you don't really know why we're there. And I was like in Afghanistan, for example, and I would see big name financiers and also like real estate agents come over, or not real estate agents, like real estate people, like very well known people.
Like blow the place up, and then those are the rebuilding people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, they're coming. They're there in the middle of like we got combat operations going on, and they're just getting tours all over the city with private security and all this other stuff. And what they're doing is they're looking for buildings and property to buy. And if that doesn't wake you up, I don't know what will. You know what I mean? And so when I got out, I was very like disheartened from it all. I remember being in Afghanistan, and I had I was in this. It was just like a gaggle of officers and stuff, and they were talking about the types of resources they could get in Afghanistan. And Afghanistan doesn't really have a ton of like natural resources. And I remember them just trying to like, they were like showing minerals and rocks and all this other stuff. And it was very like, oh, okay, they don't really have anything that they can get out of here. So the benefit isn't really to them in any way other than to possibly just destroy the region. That's what I started to come to the conclusion of. Like over and over, you see areas like Dresden in 1945 and all this stuff that like, what happens at the end of all these wars? More stuff is destroyed.
Yeah,
That's what
and then
happened
there's always
with ISIS.
a reconstruction period. Yeah, we
Yep.
continue.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened in again 1945. And if you look at pictures from Dresden in 1890, it looks like what people call old world Tartaria, which I'm starting to think that Tartaria was a region in the Mongol. And I think that Tartarian people were probably just Mongolian type people. But
Hmm.
I actually think that the worldwide civilization that you see were more like the Greek gods, like the pantheon of the gods. And then the flood happened and flooded and killed them all. You know what I mean? And then what we see now around the world is the remnants of that civilization. And I do think that there was a time where Christian crusaders came through and started taking over these buildings, also burying portals and all this other stuff like Stonehenge and Göbekli Tepe and all these places.
Hmm.
So I think that Christians did take over a lot of these places that were these buildings that were constructed, by this race of giants, that the Nephilim that ruled over the earth at one point. But anyhow, I think they're still going in and destroying a lot of evidence of that race of giants, of that race of people.
You
And you
got
can
me
see
in a bunch of thoughts on that because I mean, you could even make an argument for that's what World War One was about too. I mean, and then World War Two was a continuation in a way. And then you even have, like you had mentioned, ISIS a minute ago, ISIS destroying biblical sites, during the time of the Iraq-Afghanistan war and everything going on. And it's almost like, well, we funded fucking ISIS as well. So you're kind of like, are we letting somebody else do the dirty work so we don't get the blowback on it? And it's like, yeah, every time you look at these wars, whether modern or old, there's some kind of destroying of a previous civilization almost every time.
yeah, they're going in and taking out this technology that they used to have. They're digging it up and they're storing it away somewhere or throwing it into the ocean, whatever it is. I don't know what they're doing with it, or maybe continuously using it to this day. I don't know, but that seems to be what's happening because I mean, most people who are in the military, when we're over there, we're like, well, why are we here? Like nobody really knows. And as I was a non-commissioned officer in the Air Force, what they teach you is that you're supposed to relay the message of whatever the commanding officer is. If it's a general, he relays it to the colonels relay it to the flight chiefs relay it to us, and we relay it to the our subordinate troops that are underneath us. And a lot of times nobody even knew what we were over there for. No, people patriotically you'll say, well, we're fighting for freedom, but like, what does that mean, dude? If
Yeah.
like I'm in this nice neighborhood right now. If we saw tanks rolling through this neighborhood, like I would be up in arms just like some of these people over in
Yeah.
Afghanistan stuff. I would be throwing grenades at these people and mortars and all this other stuff too if they were
That's what people don't
rolling through
think
with
about.
tanks. I
They
know.
don't think about the context of it is like, and I'm not defending terrorism or whatever, but it's like every time you take out one of theirs, then it's just like in any movie. You see the 14-year-old kid go see his dead dad's body and picks up his AK, and you just made a 14-year-old extremist now. So instead of the 30-year-old man that you're going to kill, now you get stuck with the next decision of, am I shooting a 14-year-old? And it gets really fucking hazy because if it was your neighborhood, like you just said, wouldn't you be going like, yo, what is going on here? I'm gonna take up arms and defend my region or my whatever. So it's a context thing, It's like what Ron Paul talks about, blowback. The
Yeah.
big Ron Paul moment with Giuliani, and he's like, "You think we deserve to get hit by 9/11?" He's like, "No, I didn't think we deserved it, but I think we kind of effed around enough and it made some things happen."
That's what happens all the time. It's funny because we say the word terrorist, but you got to think about it, man. And we have a lot of movies where we have mercenaries, right? Like
Hmm.
like the Punisher, they came after his family and now he's got to go take, we love that kind of guy, but then we hate a terrorist, but the terrorist is probably very similar in the idea of like, oh, you killed my family or they blew up my sheep or whatever the case is, or you kicked
Yeah.
down my door. Now I got to take some action against that. But yeah, that's a weird situation to be in too for military members because or U.S. service members because we don't know who to trust. We don't know what has happened over the course of 15 years or 20 years or whatever. And so our hands are tied too because there's a lot of like, obviously we live by the Geneva Conventions, but they don't.
Hmm.
They use guerrilla warfare tactics fighting out of caves and mountaintops and they're not wearing uniforms and all this other stuff. They'll blow up, churches and they don't care. So it's our military members have their hands tied as well. So it seems impossible. It seems like an impossible situation for people, but we're always fighting somebody else's war because somebody's going to benefit that. These people who Raytheon and all these other different companies make a lot of money.
Bingo.
Northrop Grumman, all these other places, they make a ton of money. And
Lockheed. Yep. Lockheed Martin.
yeah, and these people all donate to these politicians. And it's funny, man, because we were talking about Lindsey Graham and John McCain a little bit ago. Well, they have these things called, a lot of people don't know this, but they have these things called congressional delegation visits. And I was a photographer in the Air Force. And so a lot of times I was also stationed in Turkey. So a lot of times when CODELs, congressional delegations come, they have a gaggle of congressmen, senators that fly and they do it once a month. So a group of them will do it once a month, and what they do is they fly over just for literally 5 minutes. They put their foot on the ground, and that enables to get them to get tax free, and that enables them to get hostile fire pay. So their entire congressional salary is now tax free. So
Kind of
this
like
is kind of
Brian
shitty.
Williams. I was there. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
and I'd been around Brian Williams, and he
No
never been in.
shit.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
really? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I was around him in Afghanistan on a rooftop at an embassy in Kabul. Because again, I was a photographer, so I was kind of like a fly on the wall.
But was he under sniper fire? No.
No,
Okay.
dude, fuck no, no,
Anyways,
man,
continue, man. Yeah.
no. But that's the way it works, man. Is like a lot of people don't understand that these people are friends. John McCain, Lindsey Graham, Joe Lieberman, all these people they fly together all over the world just to get that combat uh, that hostile fire pay and that tax-free money and all that stuff. That's what they do, man. And while they're doing that, they also enrich themselves. They
Oh,
will,
yeah.
go over and they'll speak on behalf of one of these Raytheon companies or no, Northrop Grumman or whoever it is, General Dynamics, whatever company it is, and they'll advocate for buy these weapons or whatever the case is, and
Yeah.
then next thing you know, they're selling they're selling arms to the other side or funding ISIS or whatever. And it's funny because I just watched a video earlier and I didn't even think about this, but to a lot of terrorists, the quote unquote terrorists that are detained, they don't know what ISIS is. I saw a little short video of it, and they were being asked questions. They're like, "What are you talking about? What is ISIS?" Like nobody even knows what ISIS is, and yet that was the narrative that we were fed. But there's always a reason to go into these countries, man, and just destroy.
Well,
You
look
know?
at Al Qaeda. It's like Al Qaeda, however the hell you say it. I got a southern accent a bit too, man. I'm from Oklahoma, but with them, you got Osama bin Laden. I mean, Tim Osman, who was a CIA asset, anyways, with the Mujahideen back in the '80s, which basically turned into Al Qaeda. And it's like, wait a minute. It's like, so if you just go back to the inception, it's like we don't have to get into a Jew conversation, but it's kind of like when you look at the early life section, you're like, oh, there it is. But it's like when you see the inception of all these bad guys that we're told that these are the terrorists. These are the guys we got to take out. Toby Keith said these brown people are bad, damn it. And then you find out how they were all fucking CIA funded. And then, on top of that, you think of like CIA Black Ops. Black Ops always sounds cool. And you're like, Black Ops is just a fancy military term for illegal. Basically, if you kind of really think about it, it's like Black Ops means we're doing some shit we don't want you to know about because you'll probably get us in trouble if you found out. So you come to find out they're playing both sides. It's a roulette board and they're putting money on red and black. And you're like, they're going to win either way. The bankers, the the military, I mean not the military, the well, I guess military industrial complex, the bomb makers, the Raytheons and the shit like that. Like they don't care who the hell they blow up. As long as those bombs blow up, then there's a need for another bomb to be produced and be bought.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's 100% what happens. And it just sucks because like American people who are good patriotic people who care about this country, who have that deep-seated, patriotism in them where they've been saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, you mentioned Toby Keith on 9/11, the day that it happened, my buddy Jeremy and I were going to go to sign up for like tech school. I just graduated from high school and we were going to go sign up for tech school, which is like just technical college.
Hmm.
And when it happened, he and I just rode around just smoking Newports and drinking all day. And we're like, yeah, we're going to sign up for the military. And, that kind of drove the narrative for many years. But then you start to see it again that there's always some sort of a mass destruction of everything that goes on. Like, and a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense either, man. Because like I was in Iraq one time, driving around the city or riding around the city, and there was a guy who was a Freemason with us. And he was an old man, and he worked for like the State Department. And he was like, "You see that building over there?" And I looked over, and it was this giant, massive building, and it was like a Freemason temple. And
Mm.
he was like, "This is the biggest one in the world," or something like that. And I was like, "That's crazy." It's like, oh, it's so. Then again, my mind is like, "Well, that seems weird."
Then
Like,
what are we doing here? Yeah,
yeah,
continue.
that
Yeah.
seems weird. But it seems weird to have it in Iraq, where a place where you wouldn't think that there would be some old world style building that with columns and a giant Freemason symbol. You
True.
normally see that in DC.
Yeah.
You normally see these.
Or the Jimmy Kimmel building.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
you know that one, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but go ahead. Yeah.
But yeah, man, you look around DC and you see all these. Again, this is what I was just saying a while ago about the uh, pre-flood civilization, the with the Nephilim and all this other stuff that ruled. Like, I don't think I'm starting to get to I don't have any proof of it, but my gut is telling me that United States is not what it seems. it like everything about this country is not what it seems. And I know that's kind of crazy. I mean, it sounds like, you go down this red pilled rabbit hole and then you end up black pilled and all this other stuff.
It happens. I'd rather be
Yeah.
informed of the worst than be like naive and not worried about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you.
But you look at it, man, and it's like, there's a statue that was made in like the 1840s of George Washington, and he's wearing like a toga. And you look at all these people from not a couple hundred years ago, and it just doesn't make sense. They don't look like people that would have been in the United States, if that makes any sense. They all had different. They wore different things. They had different hairstyles, all this other stuff, and all this gargoyle statues and all this other stuff, all this architecture all over DC and New York City and all this. It's everywhere. And they always have this Greek lettering, and you
Hmm.
see it on coinage, you see it on all
It's
these
on your
other things.
dollars. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so when you see "In God We Trust," it makes me think like, is it our God, the Christian God, the capital G God, or is it some other God that they're saying is, their God? So in God we trust, but is it our God or their God? The lowercase
Yeah.
g, the devil. And so this goes back to what I was it's funny because I have a on my over my left shoulder here, I have a "Don't Tread on Me" wooden flag.
Yeah, I can see it.
And right, and in the Bible, Jesus gives us permission to trample the snakes and scorpions, right? And so it makes me think like, well, why do we have a flag that says "Don't tread on me"? You know what I mean?
With
Like,
a
are we
snake. Yeah,
with a snake?
exactly.
You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense. So I'm starting to kind of wake up to all that reality too, that maybe this whole country is not what it seems, and that we've just been propagandized or going through some sort of a reset of civilization. I mean, they say that it's a reset. It's on the dollar bill. It's, the Latin phrase says "New Order for the Ages" or whatever, right
Uh-huh.
underneath the pyramid. Like, why do we even have pyramids on there, right? It doesn't
Yeah,
make any sense.
Novo something or whatever. Yeah, exactly. And then the
Yeah.
pyramid with the all-seeing eye, which goes back to some Illuminati Freemasonry shit, you know?
Well, to me, it's the Watchers, and I have a whole theory on that.
Yeah.
That eye is the fallen angels. It's the Watchers, and that pyramid is actually a portal location for fallen. This is where the fallen angels would give forbidden knowledge to humans.
Mm-hmm.
It was at these portal locations, and I actually think that again that the world was flooded by God because of that, because they were accessing fallen angels at these locations,
Too
and
much. Yeah, too much that we
yeah.
weren't supposed to have. Yeah.
Yeah, and right here in the United States, man, we have so many our national forests and all that stuff. I think that they are hiding all these portal locations, and I think that they deliberately have done that. And I was on Nephilim Death Squad a couple of days ago down in Florida, and I was telling them how I went out to Wyoming, excuse me, and we left Yellowstone and we were driving through like Buffalo, Wyoming. And when you got to Buffalo, like you just look around at the quote unquote mountains and they're pointy shaped and they literally look like pyramids, dude. It looks like
Mm.
there are hundreds of them. I'm like that. Like I've seen mountains, mountains do have different shapes. They don't all look uniform across this whole, 50-mile stretch. And so it just makes me wonder that are they still covering up the fact that there was a fallen civilization that existed prior to us, prior to Christians coming in? And I think that they're continuously hiding that. They're destroying the evidence of that
Yeah.
because they don't want that to happen again, and
Well, you
they don't want
look
us to rise up.
you look abroad as well. I mean, they want you to look abroad is the thing, is they want you to keep concentrated, like we were talking about before logging on here, is like, keeping you distracted, keeping you angry and worrying about like, some other brown guy in some other country or some other shit that's going on in England or some shit that's going on in China or Taiwan or wherever else. Pick your destination, throw a dart on the dartboard, right? But they don't want you looking here either. And then it's like this idea that America, and I'm not turning this into some like, oh, fuck Christopher Columbus argument, because that's just such a stupid argument, really, anyways, because Columbus didn't even really discover here. But no,
Well,
I
he was
mean,
Jewish too, right? And it
well,
just so happened to
yeah,
be that 1492 when the
yeah,
Jews were
yeah.
kicked out of Spain.
And
So
if you've ever
interesting.
talked to Johnny Cerrucci, then you can get into the conversation of like, well, he was sent by Spain and Jesuits and all that shit. And why was there a Jewish guy with the Jesuits? Like, it's just a weird combination of things. But my point is though, is they keep us not looking at our own country to where it's like you had mentioned the Freemason building in Iraq, right? And it's like, how is this over here? But Well, back to the same as pyramids. There's pyramids all over the world. There's pyramids in South America. They're all over America. They're possibly in the Grand Canyon in the spots you can't explore. And like this idea of nobody was on the same page and nobody knew this other part of the world existed, as we kind of dig deeper and deeper, we kind of find out that seems a little more horseshit. I mean, even with like the idea of airships and stuff like that, like, well, were the Wright brothers the first to fly? And if so, then how do you explain the Nazca lines and all kinds of other things? Even Washington, D.C., back to that, being able to see all the, the characters and shit that they basically made the township into. Like, why would you do that if nobody could fly? If there was no air, if there was nothing to be able to see from that point, it's so back to just all of history. It's a lie. Pyramids, what are they? Well, they're burial chambers. Yeah, I don't fucking think so. I mean, I don't know, man. Pyramids are just too weird and like too perfect to just be like, we just built this perfect structure and they're always lined up to some astrology thing or something else. And we're like, we're just burying dead people here. Modern people, we just throw them in the dirt. I mean, like, but you get what I'm kind of saying?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, first of all, people don't even realize how many pyramids there are in the United States. There's
Yep.
thousands of them.
Yep.
That there's lots of them in plain sight. First of all, you can go to Moundville, Alabama, and there's 10 of them out there. You can go to the Winterville Mounds in Greenville, Mississippi. There's a bunch of them there. You can go to Poverty Point, Louisiana. There's a bunch of them there. All of them on the 33rd parallel, by the way, and all of
Mm.
them near the Mississippi, who a lot of people think that the Mississippi was actually the Euphrates from the Bible. So there's a lot of interesting tie-ins to, you know, the flood myth and all this other stuff. I was just talking with a preacher about this who didn't know, but the gopher wood, comes from northwestern Florida in the Panhandle and the Georgia line.
Have you
Well,
ever
they don't.
talked
There's
to Dr. Narco Longo about like old world Florida shit? Listen to him. Like
no.
if you've not had a chance to, he describes kind of a lot of stuff like a little bit of the Moors coming to Florida and stuff like that, predating what we kind of know of like the colonies and shit like that. But anyways, continue. Like there's a lot of weird old shit in Florida, but look up Dr. Narco Longo if you've never heard him.
No, I do know who he is. I just have never talked to him.
Oh, okay.
But there's a lot of just in the United States. I mean, you can go into your backyard, into the national forest or the local state forest, and you can find a lot of these places. And what happens is a lot of times people don't understand this or know this, but they think that, like, let's just say Moundville, Alabama, for example. The University of Alabama oversees Moundville. And off the bat, you go, well, the university is overseeing it. I'm sure they've done excavations and renovations of the place, and they want to see what's going on. And they've done archaeological digs and all this stuff. And no, they have not. They have not.
Oh,
What happens is a lot of times they're given money by the government, like federal grant money and stuff, to basically do nothing. And that's what they do. So they continue to get paid to do nothing, to not look into it,
like they
essentially, and
sit
not
on it
tell
and
us.
guard it, keep that dogma. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all it is. And they have the, trustees. By the way, if you go to Moundville, the one thing that they found there that they say is like Native American or whatever, it's a hand with an eye in the center of it.
Mm.
And you actually look, me and my little brother went there, and you actually look at a lot of the sewer caps and stuff like that around Moundville, and they all have a pyramid with an eye in it. And so it just makes you think that there's, again, something else going on there that, my conspiratorial brain is like, okay, this is odd. Like, why do you have a pyramid with an eye on it in Alabama? It just doesn't make any sense. And why is all this imagery, even the police cars and stuff like that have the eye, that same eye as their logo for their police logo, their police stickers or whatever on
No way, dude. That's creepy.
their car. So it's interesting, man. And it goes again. There's a pyramid off the coast of Louisiana. Dude, they're everywhere, and they're hidden in plain sight. A lot of times they try to call them mounds, and they try to call them ceremonial sites and burials and all
Uh-huh.
this other stuff. But if you go there and you look at these places, they are literally step pyramids with the flat top, like you see in like the you know
Aztecs and shit. Yeah.
yeah, Mesoamerica and all this other stuff. Yeah, you think that they just stopped building that stuff right at the border of United States
All
and
right.
Mexico, right? They just like, all right, we're not going
Well,
any further to build these things. We'll just
borders are
build them in this region.
imaginary kind of in a way, anyways. I mean, not to sound like a liberal,
Right.
but I'm just saying, like, if you think about Texas itself, it was fucking Mexico for the
Right.
longest time, anyway. So it's like these borders are all like people like, man, it's a weird thing about how easy they can dupe us on like thinking that history has always been history because they can change something. I'm 36. They could change something 70 years ago. So kind of a generation and a half before me, and then I grew up with it and my dad grew up with it. And so that's just the way it's been forever in the back of your mind. You don't think to question these things. You get what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, no,
like,
for
why?
sure.
And then, like, even kind of back to the war stuff, like unexplainable shit. Like, why did Hillary Clinton in her emails have shit about talking about, the resurrection chamber of Nebuchadnezzar and stuff? Like, why was that even ever wrote out in her emails? Why were they talking about the weapons of mass destruction might actually be stargates, and you're like, wait a minute. Like, and then you think about the idea of America just in the last 75 years after Operation Paperclip, and it's like the Tripoli joke of like Germany lost the war, the Nazis didn't, because most of the Nazis just got to come over here and to go to Russia. But then you're also like, what were the Nazis doing during that time? It wasn't just blowing up the French and the English and fucking whoever else. They're like, no, we're looking for all the biblical sites. They were on, what's the fucking tank commander down in Africa. You know what I'm talking about? The famous tank commander on the Nazis or whatever. It's like when they did the Northern Africa invasion and stuff as well. And back to biblical sites. Like, why are they always going to these places that seem to have some kind of energy to them? It's like the mass sacrifice of people is an energy itself, but like these places have something magnetizing that it's like bringing them there, like Indiana Jones.
No, that is exactly what's happening. And I kind of go deep with that, and I don't really want, just for the interest of time, I get down these rabbit. I mean, I'll start talking about something, and then I'll never let you jump in, kind of thing. But
Welcome to my world. Yeah.
yeah. But what happens, man, is all these Stonehenge and Avebury and Göbekli Tepe and the pyramids in Egypt and all these places, these stone circles, these standing stones, these dolmens, these whatever you want to call them. By the way, dolmens translates to portals. That's literally the translation of
Ooh.
dolmens. Passage mounds, all these other different things around the world. They're strategically owned ley lines, and what ley lines essentially are there's a geomagnetic interaction between the Earth and the Sun, and it causes an electrical current, EMF, and it kind of pushes out the Earth through volcanoes and fissures and fault lines and streams and things like that. Anything that has an open crack in the Earth, essentially, and it creates an electrical current, and that current flows out from these volcanoes, and they flow along these current lines essentially. And those current lines are called Peterson currents. So literally ley lines are called Peterson currents in scientific terms. Okay. So, but nobody ever talks about or looks into why. I'm sure they already know why these ley lines or why these locations were built on these ley lines. And what they are is like essentially these stones, like blue stones and stuff like that, which is what the Washington Monument is made of as well. It helps kind of insulate and trap energy, if you will. And so
Hmm.
what the ancient people would do, they would build these stone circles to help encircle or entrap that electrical energy. That electrical energy creates a magnetic field. That magnetic field interacts with the Earth's magnetic field, and it creates like a whirring, like almost like a buzzing, and then it leaves a gap in the electrical and magnetic fields. And that to me is what the portal is. That lets these things come from the etheric realm, the spiritual realm, into our reality. And so this is where you get the idea of fallen angels. I go a lot deeper than that. On the recent show I did with Nephilim Death Squad, which is coming out soon, I kind of cover all that, and it gets into noble gases and plasma and all this other stuff. But
Nice.
yeah, but essentially, man, that's what it is. Is they are accessing energies, and these energies, people when they go to Stonehenge and all this stuff, other stuff, they say they have downloads of information. And
Mm.
it also happens with crop circles too. People who they call them temporary temples because crop circles have that same effect. People go to crop circles and they meditate and all this other stuff. They get downloads of information. Well, what is
Temporary
down?
because it's grass, it's going to regrow eventually, or it's whatever crop. It's not an actual stone structure, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it still does the same thing as a Stonehenge.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but it's just a temporary because it'll regrow again and
Yeah.
then it'll be gone. The energies will be dispersed. So, so these things, when people go in them, they have these downloads of information. Well, what is a download of information? It's forbidden knowledge. It's knowledge that you didn't earn on your own. You didn't go read a book. You didn't go experience it for yourself. You went there and you got a download of information. Well, this is where the idea of the fallen angels teaching weapons of war and cosmetics and all this other stuff. This is where you get the idea from, in my opinion. And so, again, I think that God destroyed that, and that the Crusaders went through and tried to destroy a lot of this other stuff, but then they kept some of that architecture. But again, you can see this with the Mexican American War of 1848. This is what they did. This is when they roped in parts of Texas
Yep.
and New Mexico and all that other stuff, the Grand Canyon area, because they wanted to control that narrative. And that's exactly what they did. They controlled the land, and then now we can't go to the Grand Canyon and explore. They have all these archaeological, it's a World Heritage Site as well. They have all these archaeological, can't go there and do this, and you can't fly drones and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And that's all by design, man. I think there are parts of the government who are occultists and they are working with the negative energies of the world. But there are also probably good people in government, I would imagine. I would imagine there's not a lot of terrible people that
Same as
worship Satan.
military. There's people that
Yeah,
go in for good intentions and sometimes
right.
they get squashed out. And then there's people that are going there for bad intentions. They get the promotions. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man, and that's what they did is they just they keep hijacking these areas. If you go anywhere like in Georgia, for example, my little brother and I went to Georgia, stopped at a little barbecue place in the middle of the woods, and we grew up in the woods too, So like as soon as we got there, first thing I knew to do was talk to some of the local hunters, and I saw this guy, and I said, "Hey, man, you hunt?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Where's any weird places around here with like stones or pyramids or anything like that?" And he goes, "Oh man, they're all over the place." And he pulls out his little GIS app and all this stuff for that hunters use,
My
and he was
dad's a
showing me all these.
hunter. So yeah, I grew up in the woods with some
Yeah.
weird shit too. But yeah, so what the hunters have the weirdest stories. Continue.
Well, they're always the ones that come across these in the middle of the woods. They come across
Yeah.
these boulders or whatever, and these boulders are the same boulders that you're seeing over in, England and in the
Yeah.
British Isles and all these other places. So, but all of them, every time we stopped talking, we ended up talking to another guy who was a firefighter, and he was like, "Oh, dude, let me put you onto this place." And next thing you know, we ended up at Rock Eagle Effigy, which is in the middle of Georgia. So it's also in a national forest, the Oconee National Forest on the 33rd parallel. So, but
And
in that region, there's
effigy is a strange word to use, but yeah.
yeah, well, it's a giant rock eagle that can only be seen from the sky, and it's like
No shit.
yeah, so when you go and you look at this place, and we walked around and everything, they have a placard, and every time you go to a place like this, there's a placard, and it always says the Smithsonian got here in 1805 or whatever, It's like all right, so they clearly just did nothing or took everything or destroyed a lot
Yeah.
of stuff or whatever the
Everything
case
is
is.
gone at this point.
Yeah, everything is gone, and so the Smithsonian has a lot of things, artifacts, and everything I would imagine, and who knows where it's stored, whether it was thrown into the river or the ocean or whatever the case is. But I'm sure the ocean has a lot of that kind of stuff. But going back to what I was saying, and I know you're a rock guy, Led Zeppelin talked about this. They talked about a lot of the crop circles and getting downloads of information and stuff like that. And you can actually hear that in a lot of the songs that they have. And you can hear a lot of kind of crazy talk that nobody's ever said things like,
Well, their
Stairway to Heaven's.
album, I mean, it's not like a specific album, but it's basically like their first greatest hits. It's a double
Yeah.
CD, and it's the early years and the latter years, and the cover of it is basically the Zeppelin symbols as crop circles.
Yeah, and the funny thing is what was the guy that died recently? I think he was the bassist or something like that, the guitarist maybe that died not too long
Um,
ago.
Ace Frehley from Kiss, he just passed away the other day.
No, from Led Zeppelin. There was one of the band members that,
Zeppelin, anybody,
yeah.
nobody's died from Zeppelin in a while. The last that died was John Paul Jones, the drummer,
Oh,
but
maybe it was him.
but
Well, one of
the
the
other three remaining members are still alive. There's been
I
a
can't.
bunch of fucking classic rock guys dropping this year though. Ozzy died this year. That's a whole nother bag of worms, But I don't
Let
think
me
there
look it
was.
up real quick, man. There
Yeah,
was
go ahead.
a because there was one, and I don't know if it was John Bonham. Yeah, it was he was the one who was the one who wanted crop circle on the cover of the greatest hit album that you're talking about. And when he died, there was a crop circle, the exact crop circle that was made the day after, the day a couple days later, right after his death. So it
Ooh,
was pretty
interesting.
interesting. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But
Interesting. That's almost like back to the downloads thing. Like, how's
yeah,
that kind of synchronistically happening?
yeah. So it's interesting, man. Like all this kind of ties in. It's almost like these things are they're using people, these fallen angels, they're kind of using people and for their messaging or whatever they want to do. And I I distrust a lot of people who say that they interacting with Pleiadians and the Council of Light and all this other stuff. And I've had some of those people on my show and they're good, really good people. I just don't believe that they're interacting with angels. I think, I mean, they are interacting with angels, but fallen angels is what
I
I think
share
they
your
are.
thoughts on that too. It's like even back like the idea of musicians, like you're talking about. You got what's her name? Beyonce talking about Sasha Fierce and even, Garth Brooks with his what was it, Chris Gaines. And it's like everybody has this alter ego and this little I'm like, dude, I can say the same thing sometimes where people say, how do you get on stage and just play a song and you just kind of like tune out? Yeah, you tune out, but I don't like really feel like I'm concentrating. It's like when you're tuning out playing, if you're a running back, like you can't concentrate on the world. You got to concentrate on grabbing that ball and fucking running. Like that's your job. Like so like I get the idea of like tuning out a little bit so you like don't focus on the people's faces, focus on your instrument or your singing or whatever. But yeah, there's something weird when like there's I mean, and nothing against anybody that has good intentions or they're the muses like the Greeks and things like that. Where you're like, I don't know if I would trust any other source that's coming into my, like what are your thoughts anyways? But I don't know if I would trust another voice inside my head, I guess, instead of my own. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, but again, if you didn't earn the information, that's why I kind of fear AI a little bit, is because we're not
Yeah.
earning a lot of this
I
information.
think AI is Ouija boards, dude. It's
It
just
kind of,
digital Ouija boards.
well, it's forbidden knowledge in a lot of ways, but because again, I think part of being a human being is the experience of learning to create, learning to make your own music, learning to draw your own things, learning to be a photographer, learning to build desks or computers or whatever the case is. I don't think the purpose of humanity is to come here and let everybody else tell us what to do. Again, this is the idea of the forbidden knowledge that that Eve, God was like, don't eat from that, don't eat from the forbidden fruit, or don't eat the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, because that's the forbidden fruit, is knowledge, is too much knowledge. Just live your life and enjoy your human experience, because this is a unique experience. And you're here to probably learn something. Maybe that's, to me, that's learn how to love or whatever the case is. And I don't think that we will get this same experience anywhere else. I don't think that we'll be able to eat meat and smoke cigarettes and have sex and all this other stuff in any other dimension that we're going to go to. I call it heaven that we're going to go to, but any other place that we go to from here, I think this is a very unique experience that maybe you come to for learning. Like I said, to learn how to love, and if you don't, you kind of get recycled back into this life again, and or to something lesser or whatever, until you start to learn really and truly what it is to learn to love someone. So, but that's what I think, man. I think that a lot of these things are deliberately destroying portal locations for on the side of good. If they're destroying these portal locations still. And I also think that they are, which is why I think they're hesitant to uncover Göbekli Tepe.
Hmm.
It's been slowly being uncovered since like 1995. It's like 30 years ago now.
Yeah, they
And
blackballed old Graham Hancock, man. They're like, nope,
yeah,
you can't talk about that.
well, right. And there's places right off the coast of Egypt that are like a whole city of like treasures and stuff that literally, people would line up to see in any other city. They line just like they line up to, go to the pyramids in Egypt, which I've been to. They would kill to see these things that are underneath the ocean. And I watched a documentary on that not too long ago, maybe a couple years ago now. And the guy was like, for last 40 years, he's just been trying to raise money and do everything himself, but he's been fighting against the Egyptian government because the antiquities czar or whatever they
Yep.
are over there don't want people to, go explore more and figure out things. And I think that that's first of all, that's really strange. The
Yeah,
fact that we
why?
had right, the fact that we got stuff in the United States that we can't, like, why can't we fly drones over the Grand Canyon? Well, if this is a safety issue for people falling off, that's their justification for not allowing us to just walk around different trails and stuff. Okay, I understand, but why can't we fly a drone over there? Why can't we fly our drones over any national forest?
Hmm.
Which is a weird thing,
Why
so
can't we go to the bottom of like, okay, I've had Dave Weiss, Flat Earth Dave, on here multiple times. And one thing I always go back to with him is like when it comes to like just say Antarctica, just for a sidebar for a second, it's like, well, you can't go explore Antarctica because it's unsafe and we're going to save the penguins and shit. Meanwhile, you can be every other retard and go try to climb Mount Everest and go die and we don't give a shit. So you're like, so then why can't I go to the bottom of the Grand Canyon? Why can't I go in the caves of this? Like, if it's like America's never given a fuck about people's personal safety ever. I mean, probably the rest of the planet is the same way, but it's like, wait a minute. So if we're able to go like die a third of the way up Mount Everest because we're having a big dick contest, then why can't I go explore the Grand Canyon? Like you're saying, like make it make sense.
well, again, I think that a lot of these places are forbidden. If you look at the side of mountains in like Tibet or some of these New Zealand or places like that, there are sides of the mountains with little caves that is extremely hard to get to. And then when you get into these caves, they have like mosaics and all these different things. Well, that particular location was one of those portal locations where the electromagnetic energy flowed through. And so people will go there and they'll spend 3 or 4 days just getting countless downloads from things and meditating and all this other stuff. And it sounds great. It's like, oh man, I wish I knew what it looked like 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago, whatever the case is. And so they're getting all this knowledge, but they're losing themselves. It's the same way people when they do drugs, right? They
Mm-hmm.
want to escape this reality and go to another reality. And I think that that's what they're doing at these locations is they're looking into the future and the past and all this other stuff because these things are around us all the time. And again, I have a what I think is a pretty solid theory on this that they exist as dark energy within materialism, within material, within matter. So if we are matter, they are antimatter. They are the thing that they so matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. Well, what is mass? Nobody can explain that. Nobody knows. And so there's this theory that what's the Big Bang theory? Matter and antimatter, when the universe was first created, was annihilating each other, and antimatter ended up losing, and matter ended up gaining one more particle than antimatter. This is what the particle collider is for CERN. They're trying to recreate the Big Bang theory, essentially, right? They're trying to figure out what happens to antimatter whenever it annihilates from matter.
Playing God, yeah.
Yeah, they're playing God, and I don't think the antimatter annihilated. I think it it did annihilate, I guess you could say, in like it dispersed, but then now it's in the form of dark energy. Like that dark energy creates or animates the dark matter. So we have this literal this upside down, almost like the if we're the yin, if we're living in the light in the creation of God, we're in that yin or the yang, excuse me, because the yang is the white, the yin is the black. Then they are the yin. You know what I mean? So, and I
Which
think
is
again,
interesting because that sounds like gin, which
right?
is, you
Yep,
know,
Jen.
yeah,
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 the
yeah, yeah.
Giants. Yep. So yeah, it lines up with the dark is the symbolism of the moon and all this other stuff, and
Hmm.
yin or the yang is the white, the light, the
The sun,
heat, the sun,
SUNSON,
so
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
right. So it gets interesting when you get into all that, but I think that they are dark energy that essentially exists just to create us, if that makes sense. Like we are made up. It was like if you look at space, you see all that black stuff in the sky, right? Or for what they tell us. Well, all that black stuff in between the sun and the moon and the earth, that's that would be them. And we would be the equivalent of the sun and the moon. And we're the planets, we're the material, we're the organisms that exist, if that makes any sense. So,
I get that. I
or
like that.
another analogy I like to use is the little plasma balls you get from
Yeah,
Spencer's, which by the
yeah.
way is manufactured by the Smithsonian now, if that tells you anything. So if you go to Target, you're gonna buy a Smithsonian um, plasma ball, but those little purple tendrils would be us. those little lights would be us, and that empty space in there would be the dark matter, the dark energy that exists just to
Yeah.
create us.
And it's
So,
a matter of knowing it's there, but also these weird motherfuckers are like trying to tap into that at the same time, your CERNs and everything else. And it's like back to the old joke of like if you know their names, they're not running shit. So it's like if we know who CERN is and we can see some of their weird ritual videos that they did and shit, you know what I'm talking about? With the dark cloaked robes and shit, and they all came out. This was like, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago at this point. But like they'd even try to deny it or nothing. They're like, that was actually not specifically this, but we still did it. And you're like, okay, there's a lot of weird energy around a lot of these weird people and ideas. Doesn't mean we know the answers to it, but it means like they obviously believe in something else. Like you could believe in Jesus, you can believe in Muhammad or Buddha or whatever is your choice. I'm not going to argue with that. You'll find out when you meet your maker. Yet at the same time, these people are on another fucking level. Like they're tapping into shit that we don't understand. And then you also get the idea of like ether. You know, they took the ether off the periodic table and everything, and you're like, well, wait a minute. Is ether good? Is ether bad? Like, what if they took ether off there so you didn't know about it anymore? And that's what they're actually tapping into and possibly using as this weird energy against us that we don't know about. Like I said, a couple generations removed, you never knew it existed. History is told by the victors. So I don't know, man. It's strange. Like, what do they believe in? We don't know, but they believed in some weird shit. The
well,
elites.
I can give you a quick example of what I think they believe in. In
Go for it.
2012, they discovered what everything I'm talking about now. They call what they call dark energy is the God particle.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
yes, yes. Go
They
ahead.
call that's the Higgs boson field or whatever it is, the Higgs boson, yeah,
Particle. Yeah.
particle. Yeah. So they call that the God particle. But again, their God, their lowercase g God, right? If you the ether to me is like the scaffolding of the God's
We're getting too
creation of
close.
the
You're
universe, if you
freezing
will.
up.
It's
No,
the
you're good. You're good.
uh
Like you started freezing up. I was
we're
like, shit, you're getting too close, man.
oh
Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. No, so essentially it would be like if if the devil is on one side of a tug of war rope and God is on the other side, the the center of that, the little flag that hangs in on in the middle of the tug of war
Hmm.
would be the ether. And that ether, the devil's breath would be the dark energy and God's breath would be the light. And so we rule over the darkness because we exist in this material, right? We so if they are 1 billion particles, we are 1 billion and one particles. And our one particle to me is Jesus. Is it's that's God. That's the God particle that, and it even says it in the Bible that, the dark, a lesser light to rule the night, the light will rule the day and the lesser light will rule the night.
Hmm.
And so that's what I think happens, man, is I think that we are in a tug of war, almost like a cosmic tug of war with Satan at all times. But again, we always will win because the light annihilates the dark. And this is why when you say the name of Jesus Christ, these aliens and all this other stuff, the aliens are demons, by the way. And
Yes, sir.
when you say the name of Jesus Christ, these things flee because Christ is the embodiment of light, and that's what that word means. Because our words do have power, they do have meaning.
The truth and the light. Yeah.
Right. So that's what I think happens, man. I think that we subdue them. We rule over them, and we do that by having a relationship with Jesus. And I think that yeah, it's kind of a complicated thing to explain, but I get into the cosmology of things, if you will. And it's funny, man, because I'm not a I mean, I'm not a scientist at all. I failed physics in high school. I don't know any of this stuff. I'm having to re-look up
I
words. I'm
took
having to
chemistry 2 years in a row in high school. Yes, dude.
Yeah, I think it was similar for me. I barely graduated high school. I
I
ended up going to
skipped
college.
class half the time, but anyways, yeah.
Yeah, same here, man. Smoke cigarettes and all that other stuff. That's what I did. But so I had to relearn a lot of this stuff. I had to relearn what protons, neutrons, electrons are, atoms, matter, and all this other stuff. And what you learn is that for matter, for example, you have quarks that make up protons and neutrons, and then you have leptons that make up electrons. And all three make up atoms, and atoms make up molecules, and molecules makes up matter. Well, for everything along the way, you could put the word anti in front of all of those: anti-proton, anti-neutron,
Mm,
and electron would be a proton. So that
yeah.
exists in the antimatter world. All of the things that exist here exist over there too, but in
Interesting.
the upside down. Yeah.
The
So that's
upside down. Yeah, yeah.
it's like a Bizarro Jerry episode, right? Where it's like,
Yes, yeah.
yeah. So
Seinfeld reference. Thank you. Another
right,
Seinfeld
yeah.
fan.
Oh, I'm a big fan. I mean, I've watched it 1,000 times, man. But yeah, I think that's what happens, man. Is like again, it gets more complicated because I start talking into like science stuff, and I don't really. I'm probably out of my league talking about a lot of this stuff, but also I'm probably one of the better people to talk about this stuff because I come from it with not an educational background of like the Rockefeller education background of what this is and what that is. So I can kind of make my own conclusions whenever I read something or study something or whatever the case is. And I do the same thing for the Bible, to be honest with you. Whenever I read the Bible,
Hmm.
I don't want a preacher's interpretation of it. I want my own interpretation of it because I don't want to, whatever that preacher was fed at Liberty University or wherever it is. No disrespect to any university in particular or anything like that, but I want my own opinion on it. I don't want to go on Sunday. Well, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. Like I was
Well,
just talking again with the Nephilim Death Squad, and I mentioned how the word little season. Everybody talks about the little season. Well, the Hebrew translation of little season means a period of time. And so it's like, well, that's a different thing than little season, right? Then you think little
yeah.
season, that's like years or hundreds
You
of
think
years,
it's
thousands.
usually 1,000 year
Right.
reign or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, yeah. But that's also the same idea of like, well, if time is a man-made construct, then the 7 days of creation, who's to say that each day wasn't 1,000 years per day because we put a context on what a day is? But that's a whole nother conversation. But I'm with you. Yeah, continue though.
Yeah. And my 7-year-old daughter was asking the important questions the other day. What is time? I'm like, baby girl, you getting into some deep conversations already, like
Time's
at
not
seven
enough.
years
We're
old.
adults,
Right. Yeah. So, but it's interesting, man. I just think that everything has been there's always, they will give us the equation. They will give us some sort of a math equation, for example, and then they'll take a little piece of the puzzle out, and then
100%.
we'll just chase our tails around in academic circles and all these other things. But you kind of have to look at everything from a different perspective, and
Uh-huh.
whenever I go to read stuff, I don't just look at it as this is the way it is. I go, okay, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? And I start going off on these other little paths. And I think that that's probably the best way to do that because, otherwise you're just getting filtered knowledge. And, you mentioned it earlier this is the way it's always been, right? You always hear that kind of stuff. I go to a gas station and I'll use my debit card for like a Red Bull purchase or something.
Hmm.
And they'll go, no, it's a debit minimum. And I go, why? And nobody ever has an answer. Well, that's the way it's always been, is what they say. There's
Yep.
always a debit minimum of $5. I'm gonna go, why are you doing that? Well, because everybody else is doing it. And then, so you can see how over time, hundreds of thousands of years or thousands of years or 200 years, you can see how that becomes more solidified in our DNA with the way we think and the way we operate. It's like, no, that's the way it is because that's the way it is. It's like,
Yeah. Dude,
you don't
dude,
question it.
I'm with you. Like, as we're bringing into this closing, it's something I've said for, I don't know, basically since I've started this podcast. It's like, dude, I don't know the answers to shit. That's what my show is called, Talking Stitt. I don't care to be your Bill Gates. I don't care to be your guy that gives you the correct answers or anything. I'm the guy to tell you to question fucking everything. Like, it's like if there's an expert telling you it, just know they're probably full of shit. They have a paycheck telling them to tell you what you're being told. And at the end of the day, it's like this was one of my old sign-offs for the longest time, was like the trust your gut and everything. It's like if it feels right to you, there's probably something to it. It's an instinct. It's a trusting your gut. Your gut's a literal like biome. It's its own entity of, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But it's like the idea that we're just supposed to take everything we're told for truth is horseshit, because back to just the way it's been, but it's only been that way 20 years or 40 years or 50 years. You ask the previous generations, it wasn't like that then. So at the end of the day, like everything we're told is basically horse shit. And maybe that sounds like a black pill answer, but I'm not trying to leave a black pill ending on this, but I'm also just saying like just just distrust your institutions. Like do your own research. Look out a little bit for yourself instead of what the narrative is like, like against the grain should be a way of life, basically, like that's the only way we're going to learn things. But back to the downloads thing and things like that, human beings aren't really supposed to know everything either. That's this weird balance, this yin and yang of the conquest of life. Do you want all the answers? Because then your world is probably going to turn it like what you were saying earlier, that you dig too much into the past and then you focus on only being there instead of being in the present. Or vice versa. You focus only on the future with your career and saving money, and your kids grow to be crackheads, and you're not present in the present time. It's a delicate balance of life, man. But I don't know, man. Bradley, I'll let you. Dude, you're always a fun conversation. We're gonna do this again and not wait a fucking year. but dude, let's do this again sometime and go deeper into some of the things we kind of elaborated on here and there. And remind everybody where they can find you, dude. Your show notes will be. I say that backwards every time. All your links will be in the show notes afterward. I say it every single time I say it backwards. But dude, Bradley, this is always fun. Like you're a mind-opening guy. I like your thoughts on religion, Christianity, the world, just dogmas. It's nice to question, and you're a good conversation to have with, man.
Thanks, man. I love talking Stitt with you, like I said, and I am a Christian too. For those who are curious, like, what is he? It's funny, man, because like as a conservative, like really a libertarian. I did work on the Ron Paul campaign at one point, or the Rand Paul campaign, not the Ron Paul
Yeah.
campaign, but so I'm more of a libertarian, but a conservative like libertarian more than anything. And my conservative friends and family would be like, "Man, you're liberal," and I'm like, "No, dude, I'm actually like trying to be prudent and pragmatic about things and the way I think about things. And there's different ways to look at it. And I think God blessed me with having a job in the military where I was a photographer, where I was able to learn how to look at life through a different lens, literally. And so I think that's the way everybody should live, is like maybe look at things in a different way. It's not always one way or the other way. And I kind of get a little agitated when I hear people say, well, Trump's doing this, he's amazing, and then Trump's, I hate Trump and this. Like I hate both sides. Like let's stop talking like that,
Yes.
and you know what I mean. Just be like, hey, it's pretty. This is a normal conversation. Everything they're doing is they're trying to lower your vibrations, get you in a state of fear and anxiety and depression and all this other stuff. So just completely ignore it. Live your life. Listen to your instincts. Trust the Lord, and things will work out exactly how they're supposed to. I mean, otherwise, dude, like I said, you'll just be sitting there angry all the time at somebody and not knowing who to point the finger at. I think a lot of people in this conspiracy community can safely say who the enemy is, but in this reality, anyways. But it's hard for a lot of people to understand that and grasp that reality. And when you see that classes are being pit against each other
Hmm.
and races are being pit against each other, then you start to understand that there are puppet masters out there that kind of are pulling the strings. But yeah, man, question everything. That's where how I do the intro to my show is like question everything, So
Yes, dude, the truth is out
um,
there.
yeah, but it's the only way to be, man. It's like nothing is ever what it seems. It's always an illusion. It's always a subversion of your thoughts and your intentions and everything, man. So even the things that we're saying, man, it's like, go read things on your own, learn things on your own, experience life on your own, go out there and explore, and you'll find a totally different outcome than what you were probably looking for. So, but thank you for having me on, man. Yeah, you guys can find me at theawakenedpodcast.com. That's where my links to Spotify and Apple and all these other places are. Please do me a favor if you like what you hear here. I don't want to take away from Derek's audience, but if you want to listen to my show whenever you get a chance, you can find that again at Spotify. That's the Awakened Podcast. Hit the follow button on Spotify or Apple. Give the show a 5-star review. If it says you got to unlock, I mean, if it says you have to listen to like 3 episodes, you could listen to 3 episodes, or you could just hit the fast forward button a couple times, and it'll unlock the ability to give a 5-star review. And those reviews really help me out a lot. They help skirt around the algorithm and stuff like that. And I would encourage you to give Derek a good review on his show and a follow as well, because that really is the currency that we live in the podcast world. So thank you for having me on, man, and thank you to the audience for listening to me mumble and fumble and bumble my way through the words and
Dude, I do this
all
every
that
week. That's
stuff.
what I do. I'm like, we start with one subject, then I turn it into 15 other fucking
Yeah,
subjects. But that's what makes it fun, man. That's what makes it like, I like the idea of not completely making everything to a script. Like some
yeah,
shows are great for that. I'm too ADD to do that. Like I'm like a Kurt Metzger. I got a bajillion fucking subjects in my brain that I know of, like jack of all trades, master of none. And it's like, oh, you brought that up. Let's jump into that for 10 minutes. Let's jump into that. Let's jump. And then what the original plan was, it's a telephone game. The first 5 minutes of the episode turns into something else 50 minutes in. But no, Bradley, you're a fun conversation, man. Like you're more grounded, but similar to me to where it's like where I love talking to people where wherever I jump to, they can keep up with, and they can continue the conversation. Because guys, at the end of the day, don't listen to a damn rambling retard redneck guy like me. Like Bradley just said. Well, exactly. Like Bradley
Like
just
me
said,
too.
like, if we bring up a certain subject and you're like, this guy's a retard, what is he talking about? Okay, cool. We gave you a subject. Go down a rabbit hole. Go look into it. I'm not your arbiter of truth, and I never want to be. I just want to show people like, hey, the world's crazy, and it's a lot crazier than you think it is. And they don't want to tell you that, and they don't want you to know that. But once you dig in, you'll be like, okay, the master class system, it's starting to fall apart. But that's another episode altogether, guys. But Bradley, dude, I've loved your time, man. Stitt-Heads, I'll see you guys next time. And Bradley, guys, go follow him. Awaken Podcast. I'll put his links in the show notes. I got it right, finally. And I'll see you next time. Don't forget to put the ass in classy. Peace out, Stitt-Heads. Bye bye.